Hi, welcome to the Best Ever You Global Summit. I'm Elizabeth Guarino here with Kris Fuller, and we're incredibly honored to welcome our next speaker, Jennie Lee. Jennie Lee is a certified yoga therapist and spiritual coach with a diverse international following of clients from CEOs to celebrities. Known for her candid authenticity, she is passionate about helping people reconnect to their soul wisdom and craft purposeful lives. She is a multi-award-winning author of 3 books, including Spark Change, 108 Provocative Questions for Spiritual Evolution, True Yoga, Practicing with the Yoga Sutras for Happiness and Spiritual Fulfillment, and Breathing Love, Meditation in Action. When she's not writing or coaching, Jennie enjoys surfing near her home in Hawaii. Please welcome Jennie Lee.
Hi, it's Kris and Elizabeth. We are so excited to welcome Jennie Lee to our next segment.
Hello, Jennie. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you? So happy to be here.
Thank you for being with us. So to our audience listening, Jennie Lee is the author of multiple books, including, I want to make sure I get all the titles right, True Yoga, Breathing Love, and then your latest, you got to hold that up. It's Spark Change, 108 Provocative Questions for Spiritual Evolution. Look at that. That's a hardback one, too. Yay, right? Yeah. How tired? How much work was that? A lot, right?
Books are a lot of work. You well know.
Yeah, definitely. But congratulations, because that just launched into the world. And I've seen you, and that's been quite a lot of work and activity, and it's just been great selling, and it's changing lives. So great for you.
Well, my heart and soul are in my books, so it's definitely a work of love.
Yeah. What in that book? What do you think is the most important factor for someone successfully change their life? You know, actually have that change moment. What is that?
Yeah, so many people want to change something. They feel a dissatisfaction in one area or another, whether that's their weight or their relationship or their work. And so we all feel that impulse towards change, but obviously the implementation, really getting through that process is the difficult part. And so in Spark Change, I really talk about the arc of change and how we go from the awareness that we know something needs to change to really analyzing our beliefs that are keeping us stuck and unable to change, into looking at how willing we really are to do the work of change. And so to that question, I would say, the critical factor is someone's willingness to take action steps and to take accountability for the changes that they want. Because just knowing that we want something to change isn't enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're right about that. And I mean, you just mentioned that people they get stuck, and I certainly relate to that. I can think of a few times that I've been stuck. And so speak to that a little bit. What keeps people stuck? Like year after year in the same pattern, same thing, where they sort of don't pull themselves out of it or make that change. Like speak to that being stuck a little bit for us, will you?
For sure. I think it's something we have all felt. I know I still feel it at times, where I just can't seem to get out of my own way, even though I know I want to change something in my life. And I think we become stuck for a couple of reasons. One is that we as humans are very habitual creatures. We default to the known. Even if it's a known that is not totally comfortable, we just default there because it's familiar. And so people have kind of an inherent fear of the different or the unknown. So one of the things that we can do is start to take baby steps towards creating more comfort with the unknown. And obviously we're in a time right now where there is so much uncertainty, and this has been forced upon us to deal with the unknown in our culture at this time. So everybody has been struggling with that in different ways, but if we can kind of shift our mindset or our way of looking at the unknown to more of an adventure. And it's like, well,
I love adventure. Sign me up. I'm coming, Jennie Lee.
Yeah, we have adventure pom-poms now, Kris. All right.
Exactly. And so it's just we can either let that uncertainty kind of take us down the dark tunnel of fear, or we can say, all right, here we go. This is going to be a new chapter, and what are we going to do with it? So it's very much about mindset and how we choose to look at things.
Well, I really like what you said about, our default setting, because sometimes our default setting isn't what serves us. We grow out of our default setting and we get stuck, and then we get on that hamster wheel and we just kind of do the same thing over and over again, and it might not serve us anymore, but we're used to it. So from kind of that moment to like a spiritual evolution moment, what is it that makes us shift from one thing to another? What's that kind of like aha moment where we're no longer maybe stuck, or have an incredible yes, or an aha moment, or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, well, I think it's I love the subtitle of this book, these are questions for spiritual evolution. So what does that mean? It means that we recognize that we're not just here to kind of go through our days and do the same things and watch the same shows and eat the same food, and that's the entirety of life. Like, if that was it, I don't know, I wouldn't really want to be here. I feel like there's got to be some higher purpose to it all, and that I teach and I believe that we are souls in these bodies, and we've come for very specific reasons to learn and to grow and to give and to serve. And so every opportunity, everything that comes to us, every experience in life is an opportunity to evolve spiritually, to come closer to that kind of soul purpose that we are here working on. And it again is a mindset. It's a paradigm that we either choose to accept or not. I'm not saying that everyone has to. I'm just sharing where I come in from my belief system. But it helps me, because if I believe that there is a higher purpose to all of the experiences that I'm going through in life, then it makes it easier to go through those difficult times and look for the meaning and look for the lessons and look for how I can make that intentional change, because I know there's kind of a higher reason for it all.
Yeah, I love all of those things you're saying. I love listening to you talk about personal growth and talking about well-being, and it's stuff that I know Elizabeth and I love to champion too. And when you talk about those kinds of things and being aware and reflecting, I know you use the term introspection a lot. Can you talk to us about introspection and what that means for you, especially with regards to that personal growth and that well-being that you're talking about?
Absolutely. I feel that the practice of introspection, or another word for that would be self-reflection, is an absolutely essential practice if we want to grow personally or spiritually, because if we're not looking at kind of where we've been, what's happening now, where we're going, then we're just kind of being taken along with the current, and we're not consciously, intentionally creating our experience in life. So this practice, one of the things I talk about is that the importance of embracing the practice of self-reflection or introspection from a very non-judgmental standpoint. I think where people get caught in and falter and then find that they are struggling in the practice of introspection is that they go into self-judgment. And it's essential that we not do that, because we all have made mistakes and will continue to make mistakes. We're all imperfect humans, every single one of us. And so this practice of being reflective is not to beat ourselves up. It's to say, okay, this is how it went down this time, and I can see the potential for doing it better next time. So how can I do that? How could I maybe have more patience in this conversation with my spouse? Or how might I be less self-critical so that I could take a more courageous step forward in my work life? It's those kind of reflections that are more objective that really help us to take positive strides forward and not get stuck in that spiral of self-judgment.
I like that. The spiral of self-judgment. That's an interesting spiral. Definitely, right? Would you do me a favor, and I'm gonna break us up just a little bit here and have you go to your book. can you just sort of randomly turn to something in your book? I know you know your book, so you have to randomly do it. And just, would you read to us what you turned to, just for fun?
Absolutely. I actually love doing this because I believe in the kind of spontaneous, how the universe delivers a message.
Right. I'm just throwing up some glitter to get us all sparkly while we're waiting for you to choose a page.
Okay, so the one I opened to was question number 86. And the question is, how can I be more thoughtful to those around me? And I will just say, so each page has the question and then a little commentary about it. And rather than read the whole commentary, I think I'll just kind of give my reflection on this, which is that it's not hard to see that we're living in a world that is very focused on people going after their own self-interest. Obviously, we see this economically, politically, socially. We see it in families and in friend circles. There is so much everyone grabbing for their own self-interest. And so this question, as a question to ponder and reflect on, really shifts the paradigm to recognizing that we're kind of all in this together as human beings on this planet, and that we really will get farther by cooperation rather than competition. And so this sense of how can I be more thoughtful to those around me, meaning that could be the simplest thing, from opening the door for somebody in the grocery store to let them walk through. I can't even tell you how many times recently I've been walking into a store and the person in front of me has just let the door slam in my face. And it's like the common courtesies seem to be going away. And so thoughtfulness from that very little standpoint of just common courtesy, I think, is something that we need to bring back, all the way up to recognizing how we can be more thoughtful to the people in our immediate environment. You know, it's very easy to take the people that we live with for granted, especially since during COVID, we've all been under the same roofs for far too many hours with one another. And it's like, we don't want to do that. We want to remember that everyone is struggling and having a hard time. And the thoughtfulness is like what brings sweetness to every day and every interaction. So just having that moment of pause where you go, like, I wonder what their needs are. I wonder what their feelings are. I wonder what their struggles are, you know, and so it just brings such a sweeter, more different experience to our days.
Yeah. Does that involve slowing down to pay attention more closely?
Yes, for sure. Actually, Elizabeth, that's such a good point. But it doesn't require like a huge amount of slowing down. Really, it's just that momentary pause of we're so ramped up in our own, you know, we got to get this done. We got to move through our day and just pause momentarily to have that thought of the other. It doesn't take that long. It's more of a habit that we have to build.
Yeah.
I love how you said that too. And when you talk about moments, that is something that just really caught my ear, because I love thinking about it as moments. Sometimes we think we've got to do this huge, massive overhaul to improve our lives or to make, but it really can just be moment by moment by moment. And I just really liked how you said that. In regarding that, like moments, you know, you talk a lot about meditation and yoga and stuff too. And of course, those are practices that can be, especially meditation, can be moments, can be short, can be big, and so talk about how what you're saying, the introspection and the self-reflection and those moments really can tie into meditation, and then maybe a little bit about yoga too, because I know you're so well versed in both of those, but that's what I would like.
And my cat is listening.
I know. I saw it.
She comes out when she loves the conversation. So
cats always come when meditation is happening. Cats always come. So even the word mindful. So, you know, most people think of yoga really as the physical postures. That's what's been mostly experienced here in the West. But yoga is an ancient philosophy, and it's a way of living, and a big kind of end goal of all the practices in yoga, whether those are physical postures or breath work or meditation, is really to come home to ourselves. And meditation within the context of the yoga philosophy is the practice of stilling the mind so that we can get beyond those habitual patterns of thinking and acting in the world that we've just been talking about. So it is that sacred pause, right? And it can be just a minute or two at first to establish a new habit and to establish a practice. So whenever I'm working with people who have not had experience with meditation before and they think, oh my gosh, how can I ever quiet my mind? Well, okay, the mind never gets quiet completely, but we can learn to direct it, and we can learn to let it settle like mud in a glass, that if you let it sit there for a while, the mud starts to trickle down and settle to the bottom. So it just, you got to build up over time. And what happened, the correlation between meditation and self-reflection is not that they're the same practice, they're two different practices. One is quieting the mind, but in the quieting of the mind in meditation, we create the space in which then we can self-reflect in a more objective way. And we can drop a question, like some of the questions in Spark Change are beautiful ones to drop in at the end of a meditation, such as, well, let's open it again. Let's see what pops up. What part of my spirit do I need to call back? And, if I was sitting there in meditation and just maybe doing some breath work to quiet my mind, and then I drop that question in, what part of my spirit do I need to call back? That's a really big question that might take a long time to kind of sit with, because it could be something that I just stopped doing that I love doing, let's say singing or something. And many years ago, somebody made fun of me when I sang, but my spirit wants to sing. And so I can realize in that moment of reflection, like, oh yeah, my spirit would just love to sing again. So how can I call that back and give it some space in my life? Maybe it's in the shower or the car or whatever, but it's, so that's kind of how like meditation and self-reflection come together.
Yeah. So you ask a lot of questions.
I do.
You do. I have a couple questions for your questions, because we're going to just ask you questions. Have you always asked a lot of questions, and why?
Yes, I have. And like so many kids, kids are just the best at asking questions, right? But I think a lot of parents feel intimidated by the questions because they feel like they need to have the answer. And if they don't know the answer, they don't want to be wrong, or they don't want to look stupid. So they sort of shut kids down. Well, I was lucky enough to have a mom who never shut down my questions, and she really encouraged that. And that's a beautiful thing. I'm grateful to her for that, because it really enabled me to embrace that curious aspect of my nature. And I've always just been curious about people and how people tick, and what, human psychology and why we're here, all the big questions of life, why we're here, what we're here to do, all of that. So I've studied in my constant question asking internally, it's driven me to study psychology, lots of different philosophies, world religions, and just looking for those patterns of really understanding how humans work.
Yeah. And why though? Like, what drives that? What are you personally searching for?
Well, I think we all have the need to know on some level. People have that in different ways, right? So sometimes for someone, it might be the need to know in a certain topic of interest, like science or nature. I know my husband is super fascinated with nature, so he's always watching nature shows to kind of analyze animal behavior. And I think for me, the need to know has been to understand why people do the things that they do, because I see so much suffering on the planet, and I have a compassionate heart. I want to help that suffering, but in order to help that suffering, I need to understand what got us there. So that's I think the underlying drive or need to know that has kept me questioning all along.
Yeah, awesome. In your questioning and writing questions, like did you have a sense of how many questions were going to be in Spark Change, or did that sort of organically evolve? Like, did you have a special connection to it's going to be 108 questions, or what was that process like for you?
Yeah, the number 108 is kind of a sacred number within yoga philosophy as well as other traditions. I write about the significance of that number in the introduction, and for all the interviews I've done around this book, I've always said that's all I'm going to say on the number 108. I'm kind of leaving it as a mystery, so people have to pick that book up and read it in the intro. But it is a sacred number throughout history in different traditions, so it was intentional.
Nice.
It was an intentional choice.
So what is your personal favorite question?
Oh,
In the book? Do you have one?
I do. And it's sort of a question embedded in a question, but it's, am I asking the right question right now? Because this is one that really goes with me all the time. And it's one I circle back to all the time because I'm such a question asker. To check in with myself, am I asking the right question right now, really makes a difference. Because I know I got stuck recently, just had a question hammering in my mind about something to do marketing wise for the book. And I was frustrated, I was stuck. You know, we were talking about being stuck earlier, and I was just like banging my head up against the wall. And then I remembered, okay, am I asking the right question? And man, it really shifted it because it was like I was going a certain direction and then I just changed, and then the whole path opened up because I got a new question in my head, and it led me to the right answer. So that's probably my favorite, at least right now, although it does change.
I love that. I love that. Except it's one of those things that sounds really easy. It's like, do as I say. And then, but how do you know if you are asking the right question? Can you speak about that? Because if I'm sitting there and I think, oh, I'm going to ask this question, but it maybe isn't, how do you know if you're asking the right question?
Yeah, well, I think it is kind of in the results that you're getting, right? So we see this in human communication. Like, I know for my husband and I, we communicate quite differently. And if I ask him a question and he answers in a way that I just kind of go like, did you get did you hear what I just asked? Because it seems like a disconnect. It's the old Mars and Venus, right? So sometimes it's my responsibility to ask the question differently because I'm not getting the response or the result that, I mean, not that I'm looking for a certain answer, but I just want to know that we're talking about the same thing. And in the example of, the marketing quagmire that I was in, and so I wasn't getting the result. I wasn't feeling the path open up. And so that's when it kind of tells me like I'm not asking the right question.
Yeah. Do you what do you think about, this is a little bit random and doesn't tie into what we just were talking about, but I was just thinking about it as you were talking this whole time. What do you think about when you have an unforeseen circumstance that you have to deal with? Will the book apply? Should we call you directly? I mean, there's a lot of stuff we're all dealing with right now, and most all of it revolves around changing something or having to adjust. What are your thoughts on that?
Can you rephrase the question, Elizabeth?
No, again, I'm just, what are your thoughts on making adjustments? Like, how would, there's just a lot to adjust to right now, a lot of change happening, and a lot of it is unforeseen. And so I'm asking, does the book, if you want to deliberately make a change or you're dealing with something that unforeseen, does the book work in both directions? Because one way you might be stuck on a hamster wheel, and the other wheel you might be like, well, where did that come from? And how do I deal with that?
Yeah, you're right. Everybody's dealing with so much unknown and so much change right now. And so I think one of the greatest things that we can do, and what my intention with this book is, it's really like therapy in people's hands, because these questions are ones that I've worked with clients for years. And so this discovery process that I go through when I'm coaching someone is really based on me asking the questions that get them out of their habitual patterns of thinking. So it's absolutely something that someone could work with on their own to break out of those places where they don't know like even where to begin with changing all the things that need changing, because there are chapters that look at what habitual patterns of belief and behavior are. And so it gets them in that self-reflective mode where then they'll start to see new possibility. And that's so important, right? Just to be able to start to see beyond what we've thought was possible in the past.
Thank you.
That makes sense when you think about things that are problems or changes that you know about, but also when it's coming at you in a random abstract way, that in both cases you can sort of circle back to good questions. I love that.
Yeah.
In thinking about that, you have so many good questions there, and your Spark Change is such a great book. Tell us, what are some of the interesting ways that people are using Spark Change?
You know, it's been so fun to hear from readers, the questions that have popped out to them, the questions that they're avoiding. I had a client who told me she opened it up and read the question and shut it and said, nope, not doing that one. But like a yoga posture that is difficult, you know, that's probably the one that you need to be doing. So I gently encouraged her to go back to it when she was ready. But people are using it different ways, like we did today. Open it up randomly, see what comes to you, because I do think that there is this resonance in the universe. The universe delivers us just what we need if we're asking for help. My husband has had dreams of numbers, and he's gone to the book and looked up the question of that number, and it's been like the exact right message. People have looked up their birthdays or a special anniversary day or something, maybe just the day of the week, to see what that has to say. So people are using it in lots of different ways. Other people are working cover to cover and very intentionally going through the pattern or that arc of change, like I talked about, to use it with more intention if they're, you know, really working on something that they know needs some shifting.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're going to go back to the summit for a little bit here, and we're grateful that you've been with us, and we're grateful for your time and your energy here. We have a couple more questions. We're asking all of our speakers some of the same questions. And so we'd love to ask you what your best tip for our audience is regarding mindset.
Yeah, sure.
The only one, Jenny. I know you're like, that's my jam. Like, I can talk for 4 hours about mindset, and now we're wrapping up talking to the mindset champion, going, give us just one nugget.
Yeah,
so
just one.
Well, I referred to it earlier a little bit, but I'll just reiterate that I think willingness, this capacity to kind of suspend judgment, whether that's on self or other or the situation of the world at large, just suspend our judgment for a moment and be willing to consider new possibility. And that is a big, big shift. It also comes into play when we think about the changes that we know we need to make. It's like we have to ask ourselves, how willing am I to really do this work? So for me, the biggest mindset shift is looking at how willing you are and embracing willingness.
Good.
I'm sitting here thinking about my willingness right now, and I have a few hurdles. I do, and I just think, I'm going to be thinking about willingness for the rest of the afternoon. But that's good.
Kris, I'll just say, you know, if you find that you're not, like, you ask that question and you go, I'm not really willing right now, that's okay, because it means that maybe it's not the right time for that change. And so again, it's about being compassionate with ourselves, being non-judgmental with ourselves, recognizing, no, I'm not willing to do that right now. I can't, like, it's too much. That's okay. It's more just a self-assessment.
Yeah. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We have one more. Yeah, no, we have one more, and that is, what is your incredible yes, or a moment in time, or a moment where you said yes to something and it changed your life? One of them, two of them, whatever.
I got one. No, the one really stands out. So about 10 and a half years ago, I was super stuck. I owned a yoga studio in Massachusetts. I was ready for a change. I had been ready for a change for a while. I did not see the path forward. I had gone a lot of different directions looking for the next thing. And I came to Hawaii, which is where I live now, on a yoga philosophy course, to take a yoga philosophy course. And when I was here, I was asking and praying, asking the universe, like, where's my next place? And what do I do? And I didn't feel like it was here, but I went, finished the course. I went back to Massachusetts. I started looking at new yoga studio spaces, and, you know, all doors started closing there. And then I just thought, well, what about Hawaii? Maybe I'll go to Hawaii. And so I threw some little hooks over the ocean and said, might there be some possibilities here? It had to do with job and my son's school, and doors just started opening. And I had a lot of people tell me, that's crazy. Don't do it. This is too big of a move. I was a single mom. I had no money saved, nothing. I literally sold everything I owned. I had 6 suitcases, my kid and a cat. I moved 6,000 miles away from everything and everyone I knew. I left a relationship. I left family. I left a community. But there was something in my heart that knew I needed this change. And there was enough indicators that told me yes. And so my heart said yes, even though everybody was telling me I was crazy. And so that was my big yes. And I've been here 10.5 years, and I'm happy to be here. And it hasn't always been easy, but I've always known that yes was a yes.
Love
oh my
that
goodness, when we say incredible yes, like you have an incredible yes. Listening to you tell that story of how much, and then still doing that decision and having so many voices not align with that yes for you. I mean, that's incredible. Good for you for doing that. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us here on Sparking Change and living the example of sparking change yourself. That's just awesome, Jennie.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thank you for being here, and best of luck, continued luck with all your success and your many books in the future and all the good stuff. So Spark Change, everybody. The author, Jennie Lee. Jennie Lee is the author of multiple books, and we've got it all listed in her bio that you can read and link and go buy. All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.